I found out how my roommate treats my cats when I'm not home. I, 24F, live with my cousin 30. I have 3 cats, 1 adult cat, and 2 12-week kittens, and whenever I am home he will be mean to them, in a very joking and light-hearted way. He'll call them names, fats, dumbs, etc. But it's in that bullying as a love language type way, and I have never been afraid of him actually mistreating my cats, especially because they clearly adore him. He plays and roughhouses with them, he pets them, but he never gets all lovey-dovey the way I do with them. Or so I thought. I live in a 2-story townhouse with my bedroom being on the 2nd floor, and I always keep my door open so that the cats can go in and out. Yesterday morning I had woken up but not gotten out of bed yet, and my 2 kittens were playing on the landing just outside my bedroom door. I hear my cousin start to walk up the stairs and I stayed as quiet as possible. I knew he thought I wasn't home because when I am home, he always calls up to me to ask if he can come up. I have given him permission to go in my room when I'm not home to play with my cats. My door was cracked open about a foot, and I see his arm reach. He says, "Scoop," and grabs a kitten. Then I hear about a minute straight of kissy sounds and baby talk. I'm just quietly watching from my bed, trying not to let out a giggle, when he suddenly stops, slow turns, and makes stunned eye contact with me through the crack in my door. When he realized I heard the whole thing, he got embarrassed and said, "Oh, I saw them running around up here and thought I'd come play with them." I laughed and said it was totally fine, but he retreated back, downstairs to put his tough guy persona back on. The photo above is one he just sent me having a cuddle session with baby George Tell. Doctor, my male roommate, pretends to be indifferent about my cats, but secretly baby talks and loves on them when I'm not around. Text messages between OOP and the roommate. He's been here for like 20 minutes, pic of the cat on the roommate me. Face holding back tears me. He's so sweet update. A while back I made a post about how I caught my roommate baby talking my cats, and I have a new adorable development, a couple. Months ago I went on a family vacation, so my roommate took care of my cats while I was gone. During that week he accidentally started a new routine with them. Each time he'd fill their food bowls, he'd stand there and give them pets and scratches while they ate. After a couple days they decided that that is now a requirement. Only with him though, they don't make me do this. Now every day when he gets home they run to the door to excitedly greet him, and then run to their food bowls. They'll sit there and yell at him until he goes over to give them pets while they eat. The funniest part of it is that they free feed. I just keep their bowls full so that they can eat whenever they are hungry. I know some people frown upon that, but my work schedule is too unpredictable to keep them on a consistent feeding schedule. And none of them are overweight, so it works. For us, even though they have constant access to food, they'll wait for him to get home from work to have dinner so that he can give them scratches. So sweet stories number 2, my boyfriend keeps giving me infections, and now I'm reconsidering marriage. Hi Reddit. I'm Claire Anderson, 29F. I've been with my boyfriend, Ryan Matthews, 32M, for almost 3 years. We live in the Midwest, and on paper, things look really good. Ryan is supportive of my career. We make each other laugh, and we've talked seriously about marriage. My family likes him. My friends think he's dependable, and honestly, up until recently, I thought I had hit the jackpot. But for the past 3 to 4 years of my dating life, mostly with Ryan, I've been dealing with recurrent infections, mostly UTIs and yeast infections. At first I thought it was just bad luck or stress. I went to the doctor, got prescriptions, followed everything to the letter, and things would clear up, but they'd always come back. And over time, the pattern became too much to ignore. The medical side of IT, I've done everything in my power to prevent this cycle. Saw Dr. Laura Price, 40F, my primary care physician. Went to a gynecologist, Dr. Michael Green, 47M, for second opinions. Changed my diet. Changed my hygiene routine. Tried probiotics, cranberry pills, even cut out certain foods. I've followed every medical instruction, but the infections keep coming back. My doctors gently suggested that sometimes partners can be carriers, or can contribute if hygiene isn't ideal. Naturally, I brought this up with Ryan. Ryan's response: "This is where things get sticky." When I suggested we both get tested again, Ryan brushed it off. His exact words: "Claire, you're just prone to this stuff. It's not my fault. You worry too much." That hit me hard. It wasn't even about blame. It was about teamwork. If your partner is in pain, why not do everything possible to help? But Ryan has this tendency to get defensive. He insists he's fine, doesn't want to waste money on tests, and says I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. To make matters worse, his hygiene isn't always great. Sometimes he skips showers after the gym, or he doesn't wash his hands before intimacy. I've pointed it out gently, but he either laughs it off or acts annoyed. The emotional toll. This isn't just about physical pain, though that part is brutal. These infections are exhausting. The burning, the constant doctor visits, the disruption to intimacy. It kills the mood when you're always on edge, wondering if tonight will trigger another infection. But emotionally, it's starting to eat away at my trust. I love Ryan, but I feel like he doesn't take my health seriously. When I try to talk about it, he says things like, "If you love me, you wouldn't act like this is a deal breaker," or, "You're overreacting." Couples have bigger problems than this, but to me, this is a big problem. If my partner can't meet me halfway on something affecting my health and quality of life, what happens when bigger challenges come? The marriage question. We've talked about settling down. Ryan has even mentioned ring shopping. My mom, Debbie Anderson, 55F, adores him. My best friend Megan Carter, 30F, thinks I'd be crazy to throw this away. But when I told Megan about the infections, even she said, "Claire, love isn't supposed to hurt." Literally. That stuck with me. I keep imagining our future. Kids, mortgage, shared responsibilities. If Ryan can't even agree to shower before sex or get a medical test for my peace of mind, what happens when life throws bigger problems our way? Why, I'm here, so here I am, questioning everything. Am I overreacting? Is it unfair to reconsider marriage over something like this? Or is this one of those red flags I shouldn't ignore? I love him. He's wonderful in so many ways. But the resentment is growing, and every new infection feels like a reminder that maybe I'm the only one fighting for my health here. Update. My boyfriend keeps giving me infections, and now I'm reconsidering marriage high again. Everyone. I didn't expect my first post to get so much traction, but thank you to everyone who took the time to comment. I read through so many of them, and honestly, it's been eye-opening. A lot of you validated what I've been feeling but was too scared to say out loud, that this isn't just a small issue, and that Ryan's dismissiveness is a major red flag. Conversations with Ryan. After reading your feedback, I decided to bring it up with Ryan again, but this time more seriously. I told him that the infections are painful, that they're affecting my quality of life, and that I need him to get tested and also take better care of his hygiene. At first he gave me the same line. "Claire, you're overthinking it. You're just prone to this. Doctors said it happens to women." But this time I didn't let it go. I said, "It's not about fault. It's about us being a team. If I'm suffering, I need to know you're willing to do everything possible to help. That's what partnership is." He got quiet. Then he said he doesn't like being accused of being dirty, and that I was making him feel like a bad guy. The thing is, I wasn't accusing him. I was asking him to care, and his defensiveness just crushed me. The doctor visit. The next step came when I went back to my gynecologist, Dr. Green. He asked again if my partner had been tested. I admitted Ryan hadn't and that he was resisting. Dr. Green just sighed and said, "Claire, if he's not willing to participate in this process, then it's going to keep happening. You can treat yourself 100 times, but if the cycle isn't broken, you'll stay stuck." Hearing that from a doctor hit differently than hearing it from strangers on the internet. It felt like confirmation that I'm not crazy, and it's not just my body failing me. Support from friends and family. I opened up to my best friend Megan more fully about what's been going on. She wasn't surprised. Apparently, she's noticed little things about Ryan too, like how he gets defensive if anyone questions him, or how he tends to downplay things that are important to me. My mom, Debbie, is more complicated. She really likes Ryan. She thinks he's stable and a good provider. When I told her about the infections and how dismissive he's been, she kind of brushed it off with, "Sweetheart, men don't always understand medical stuff. Don't throw away a good man over something like this." That stung. I get where she's coming from. Her generation didn't exactly expect men to be super involved in women's health. But I can't shake the thought, shouldn't a good man at least try to understand where I'm at? Now I'm not saying I'm ready to walk away, but I'm realizing I need to take this more seriously. If Ryan won't work with me on this, then maybe he's not someone I should marry. The infections themselves are painful and exhausting, but the bigger issue is how unsupported I feel. It's not just about hygiene or tests, it's about whether he respects me enough to take my health seriously. I told Ryan we need to take a break from intimacy until he's willing to get tested and make some changes. He didn't take it well. He said I was punishing him and acting like he's diseased. That reaction just broke something in me. Instead of saying, "Okay, let's do this for you," he made it about his ego. What I'm considering. Next, I've booked another appointment with Dr. Green to discuss long-term options. I'm seriously thinking about couples therapy if Ryan is open to it, because if we're going to talk marriage, we need to be able to handle this as a team. And, honestly, if he refuses, I might need to rethink everything. I don't want to be dramatic, but I'm starting to see the infections as a metaphor for our relationship. I keep treating the symptoms, but the root cause never gets addressed. That's where things stand right now. I'll keep updating if anything changes, but for now, I'm holding my ground. End update. My boyfriend keeps giving me infections, and I'm starting to see the bigger picture. Hey again, everyone. I didn't think I'd be back so soon, but things with Ryan escalated over the past week, and I need to get it off my chest. The compromise conversation. After my last update, I told Ryan I needed space from intimacy, until he agreed to get tested and make some hygiene changes. He was clearly annoyed but said he'd think about it. 2 nights later, he came over with what he called a compromise. His words, not mine. He said, "I'll shower before sex more often if that makes you happy. But I'm not getting tested again. I know I'm fine. This is your body, not mine." I just sat there in silence. He genuinely thought this was a reasonable solution. When I tried to explain again that testing isn't about blame, it's about making sure we're both healthy, he cut me off with, "Claire, you're making this way bigger than it is. My ex never had these problems." That comment hit like a punch. Comparing me to his ex, like I was defective, while I've been dealing with literal pain and medication cycles. My blood boiled, talking it over with Megan. I vented to my best friend Megan afterward, and she didn't hold back. She said point blank, "Claire, you're begging for basic decency. If a man can't even wash up or get tested for you, how's he going to show up when life really throws challenges at you? Marriage is about teamwork, not ego." It's wild how hearing it framed that way made things click. I've been minimizing my own feelings because I don't want to overreact. But Megan's right. If Ryan won't help with something this simple, what happens if we face something much harder down the road? A talk with my sister. I also opened up to my sister Emily. She surprised me by saying she had a similar situation years ago. Recurrent UTIs that turned out to be caused by her partner's hygiene. She said her ex also brushed it off until she finally left, and that it was one of the best decisions she ever made. Emily told me, "The infections aren't the main issue. The issue is whether your partner respects your body. You only get one, Claire." I haven't been able to get that sentence out of my head. Ryan's latest reaction. After a few days of tension, Ryan finally admitted he felt attacked and emasculated by my requests. He said, "You're making me feel dirty. It's like nothing I do is good enough for you." I told him I'm not calling him dirty. I'm asking him to show me he cares. He rolled his eyes and said I was obsessed with this doctor stuff, and that intimacy shouldn't be clinical. And that's when I realized he's not going to change. Not because he can't, but because he doesn't want to. Where I'm at now, I haven't officially broken up with Ryan, but I'm emotionally detaching. Every time I picture the future we've been planning, the house, the kids, the marriage, all I can think is, will I be stuck in this same cycle of pain, asking for help and being dismissed? The idea of spending a lifetime like this makes my stomach turn. I don't know if I'll pull the plug tomorrow or in a few weeks, but I feel the decision building inside me, so that's where I am. It's becoming less about the infections and more about realizing Ryan doesn't take my pain seriously. And if he doesn't respect that, then what exactly am I staying for? Final update. I reconsidered marriage because my boyfriend kept giving me infections. And I finally made my choice. Hey everyone, this will probably be my last post about Ryan. Because the story has officially come to an end. The breaking point. After my last update, things between us were tense. Ryan kept acting like my requests were a personal attack. We hadn't been intimate for a couple of weeks, and instead of showing concern for me, he started sulking and making snide comments like, "You're basically punishing me. What's even the point of being in a relationship if we're not, you know?" It all came to a head last Friday. We were supposed to have a date night at his place. I showed up, and the first thing he did was toss a six-pack of beer on the counter and joke, "Maybe if you loosened up, you'd stop obsessing about germs." I froze. That was it for me. The disrespect, the dismissiveness, the lack of empathy. I grabbed my bag, told him I wasn't doing this anymore, and left. The aftermath: the next day Ryan texted me a wall of messages. It started out defensive. "You're being ridiculous. You need therapy for this paranoia." Then shifted into guilt-tripping. "You're throwing away 3 years over nothing." And finally into bargaining. "I'll shower more if that's what you want, but I'm not changing who I am." Reading those texts just confirmed what I already knew. He didn't get it. He never would. The conversation that ended I called him and said as calmly as I could, "Ryan, I love you, but I can't marry someone who doesn't take my health seriously. I've begged you for basic support, and instead of showing up, you've dismissed me over and over. I deserve a partner who respects me." He tried to argue, but I told him the decision was final. And for the first time in weeks, I felt relief instead of dread. Processing. It all breaking up wasn't easy. 3 years is a lot of memories, plans, and attachment. But when I really thought about the future, I realized I'd been settling, was constantly in pain, physically and emotionally, and gaslighting myself into believing it was just my problem. But it wasn't. It was a partnership problem. And Ryan chose not to act like a partner. My sister Emily reminded me of something she said before: "You only get one body," and I refused to spend mine begging someone to care about it. Moving forward, I'm staying with my sister for a bit while I figure things out. Megan's already lined up a girls' night to distract me, and honestly, I feel lighter. Sad, yes, but also free. For the first time in months, I don't feel stuck. I don't feel like I'm bracing myself for the next infection, the next dismissive comment, the next fight. I just feel like I can breathe again. TLDR, I 29F was reconsidering marriage with my boyfriend Ryan. 32M, because I kept getting recurrent infections, and he refused to take hygiene or testing seriously. After multiple arguments, dismissive comments, and total lack of empathy, I ended things. It wasn't just about the infections, it was about respect, support, and partnership. And Ryan showed me he wasn't capable of giving those. I walked away. And even though it hurts, I know I made the right choice. Stories. Number 3. My breakup. After my girlfriend refused to go. After my former roommate for child support I-24M, let's call me Ethan, just ended a 3-year relationship with my girlfriend 23F. I'll call her Samantha. I need to get this off my chest because the way it all unfolded still doesn't feel real. The beginning. When Samantha and I first got together, everything seemed perfect. She was funny, sweet, caring, and we had a natural rhythm. Early on, she mentioned that she had briefly dated my then roommate Kyle, 29N, before she and I got together. That stung a little at first, but I brushed it off. It wasn't a secret, and she made it clear it was in the past. Kyle wasn't the greatest roommate anyway. He was one of those guys who always seemed half checked out of life. He worked as a cashier at a gas station near our place and spent most of his free time drinking cheap beer and playing Xbox until 3 a.m. But he paid rent, so I never questioned. Much beyond that. After a year of dating, Samantha and I got closer. We talked about our families, our values, what we wanted out of life. She was always kind, especially with kids, but it wasn't until 2 years in that she introduced me to her child, a 5-year-old boy named Logan. Meeting Logan, I'll admit, I was nervous at first. Dating someone with a child wasn't something I had planned for, but Logan was such a sweet kid. Shy at first, but he warmed up fast. He loved dinosaurs, Legos, and drawing. I found myself growing attached quickly. What I noticed, though, was that Samantha never mentioned Logan's father. At all. I figured maybe it was a sensitive subject, so I didn't push. I just assumed he wasn't in the picture. Over the next year I became more involved. I took Logan shopping for school clothes, covered a few class field trips when Samantha couldn't afford it, and even bought him his first bike. None of that ever bothered me. I grew up with a single mom, Linda, and I know how important it is for kids not to feel left out. When I was little, neighbors chipped in to buy me shoes or invite me for dinner when my mom couldn't afford much. So I wanted Logan to feel that same sense of community and support. The bombshell by year 3, Samantha and I started discussing moving in together. I was excited. I started making a budget. Rent, groceries, utilities, even setting aside for emergencies, because I wanted to be responsible. That's when Samantha dropped the bomb. She sat me down and admitted that Kyle, my former roommate, was Logan's father. I was stunned, not just because Kyle had been in my life, but because in the 2 years I'd lived with him, he never once mentioned having a child. Not once. I asked Samantha if Kyle was helping with Logan at all. Her answer? A flat-out no. She said, "I chose to raise Logan on my own. I don't need his money and I don't want to deal with him." I tried to stay calm, but in my head I was screaming. Logan deserves better than I chose to do this alone. This wasn't about Samantha's pride. It was about Logan's future. The fight I brought up child support. I said something like, "Look, Kyle should at least be helping financially. That's his kid too. Even if he's just a cashier, it's the bare minimum." Samantha's face twisted. She got angry immediately. "That's none of your business. Logan is my child. You don't get to tell me how to raise him." I tried explaining that since we were planning to live together, her child's well-being naturally became my concern too. If we were going to be building a household, then finances, responsibilities, and childcare weren't just her burden. They were ours. But she cut me off. "If you think you get a say in this, you're wrong. Stay in your lane." That was it. The wall went up, and she refused to hear me out. The breaking point. After that conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about child support. It was about Samantha refusing to accept help, even when it directly impacted her son. It was about her being comfortable with me buying Logan's clothes, covering trips, and helping with groceries, but drawing a hard line when I suggested holding Kyle accountable. It felt hypocritical. It felt like she wanted me to fill the gaps, financially, without ever admitting it. The final straw was when I told her, "You should be doing better for your child. He deserves more than just scraping by." I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. But she took it as a betrayal. She called me an asshole and stormed out. The breakup. That night I packed a bag and moved back into my parents' house while I figured out my next steps. It broke my heart, because I really did love Samantha, and I adored Logan. But I couldn't see myself building a life with someone who shut me out when it came to such a huge issue. I don't regret caring about Logan's welfare. What I regret is realizing too late that Samantha wasn't willing to see me as an equal partner in that responsibility. Reflection. It's been a couple of weeks now. Samantha texted me a few times, mostly angry at first, then sad, then trying to guilt-trip me by saying Logan misses me. That part hurts the most because I miss him too. He didn't ask for any of this. But I can't raise another man's child if the mother refuses to hold that man accountable. I was raised by a single mom, but even she knew how to advocate for me, whether it was getting financial help or accepting support from the community. Samantha seemed more concerned with her pride than with Logan's long-term stability. At the end of the day, I knew I deserved a partner who values responsibility as much as I do, and Logan deserves a mom who's willing to put him above her ego. So I walked away. Update: wow. I did not expect this many responses when I first posted. I honestly thought I'd just get a handful of comments telling me either "mind your business" or "you did the right thing." Instead, I ended up with a flood of perspectives, including some that hit really hard. A lot of you pointed out things I didn't even stop to consider in the heat of the breakup. So, let me catch you up on what's been happening since I broke up with Erica, 23F. The day after the breakup, I moved back into my parents' house. My folks live in the same city but on the quieter side of town. They were supportive, but also confused. My mom Linda, 51F, actually told me she understood where Erica was coming from. She raised me by herself for years before she met my stepdad, and she reminded me that being a single parent is exhausting, messy, and full of pride issues. She said sometimes mothers don't go after child support because they don't want to deal with the courts, or the drama, or they just don't want that guy involved at all. But my dad Gary, 54M, and stepdad Tom, 56M, were more on my side. They said if Erica wanted to move forward with me seriously, moving in, building a life together, then the financial realities of raising her kid were automatically part of our life too. Dad said it wasn't cold or transactional to think about money. He literally said, "Love doesn't pay rent, son." That was validating, but I still had this pit in my stomach. A couple days later, Erica reached out to me. She wanted to meet in person and talk. I almost said no, but curiosity and honestly, some guilt made me agree. We met at a diner we used to go to all the time. She showed up looking tired, like she hadn't been sleeping much. We talked for almost 2 hours. She admitted that she probably reacted too defensively when I brought up child support, but she also doubled down on the fact that she didn't want anything from Jason, 29M, my former roommate, her ex, and her child's father. She said chasing him down for money would just invite chaos into her and her daughter's life, and she's finally got a rhythm on her own. I asked her point blank, "But what about when it's not just your rhythm anymore? What about if we moved in together? What about if we had a kid someday? Don't I get a say then?" She just stared at me for a long time before saying, "That's why I don't think we should move in together right now, because we don't see this the same way." It was brutal to hear, but also clarifying. Here's another wrinkle. I ran into Jason at the gas station a week after all this. I hadn't seen him since I moved out from being his roommate. I didn't go there looking for trouble, but when I pulled in and saw him at the counter, my stomach dropped. I swear, he looked like life had already chewed him up. Bags under his eyes, scruffy, chain-smoking on his break. I debated just paying for gas and leaving, but something in me snapped. I asked him straight up if he knew Erica was raising his kid alone. He smirked and said, "That's her choice. She told me a long time ago she didn't want me involved. She didn't want my money, didn't want me around, so I respected that." Now I don't know if that's 100% true or just him trying to dodge responsibility, but it threw me for a loop. Because if Erica really did tell him to stay away, then I had been railing against him without knowing the whole story. Still, the fact remains. The kid doesn't have the support she deserves, financially or emotionally, and that gnaws at me. Here's where things stand now. Erica and I are not back together, but we're still talking. She says she needs time to figure out what she wants, and honestly, so do I. I realized part of my anger came not just from the child support thing, but from the fact that I had quietly been stepping into that role myself. Buying her daughter Sophie 6F clothes, paying for field trips, helping with little extras. I never resented it because I grew up being that kid who didn't have enough, and I never wanted Sophie to feel left out. But when Erica snapped at me and told me I had no say, it felt like a slap in the face. I don't want to be some ATM, but I also don't want to feel like I'm just a guest in Sophie's life if I'm supposed to be building a family with Erica. So no, we're not moving in together. No, we're not engaged. We're in this weird limbo where we're still in contact, but both questioning if we can really align our values. And honestly, I'm leaning toward walking away for good. Final update. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I think it's time to close this out. A lot has happened, and I feel like I've aged a couple of years just from how emotionally draining all of this has been. After my last post, Erica and I stayed in contact. We weren't officially back together, but we talked often. Sometimes it felt like old times. Other times it felt like we were two completely different people just hanging on to a memory. At first I thought maybe we'd find a middle ground. But the more we talked, the more I realized we were at odds about the same core issue. Responsibility. The breaking point. A few weeks after my last update, Erica invited me to come with her and Sophie to a school event. Sophie had a little talent show, and she wanted me there. Of course, I said yes. I still care about that kid. And honestly, seeing her smile when she spotted me in the crowd was heart-melting. But after the event, things went south. Sophie needed new sneakers, her old ones were literally falling apart, and Erica made a joke, half serious, half playful, about how I could be a good stepdad and buy them. I laughed it off at first, but it stuck in my head all night. I realized I was already sliding into the role of financial backup, and Erica wasn't even committed to me anymore. She wanted the benefits of me being there for her daughter without me actually having a voice in decisions. It felt like I was being used, even if she didn't mean it that way, so I finally asked her, "Do you see me as Sophie's stepdad someday? Or do you just see me as the guy you can lean on until you're ready for something else?" She didn't answer right away. Eventually, she said, "I don't know. I just know Sophie loves you, and I don't want her to lose you too." That broke me a little, because it wasn't about us anymore. It was about a 6-year-old who had already been through enough. The conversation with Jason. Believe it or not, I saw Jason again. This time, I made it less confrontational. I asked him directly, "Do you really want nothing to do with your kid?" He repeated what he said before. Erica told him years ago to stay away. But then he added something new. "It's not that I don't care. I just figured if she didn't want me around, forcing my way in would just make things worse, and I can barely support myself as it is." It hit me then that this whole situation was just layers of dysfunction and bad communication. Erica wanted control, Jason was fine being pushed out, and Sophie was caught in the middle. None of it was my fault, but it sure as hell was bleeding into my life. The final decision. After weeks of thinking, I decided to end it for good. I met Erica at the same diner where we'd had our first big talk after the breakup. I told her as gently as I could that I couldn't keep doing this, being half in, half out, paying for things, caring about Sophie, but having no real say in her future. She cried, which made me feel like garbage. She said I was the best thing to happen to her and Sophie in a long time. But she also admitted she wasn't ready to share control or make joint decisions about her daughter. That was it. The nail in the coffin. I love her, and I care about Sophie, but I refuse to be in a situation where I'm treated like an outsider while being expected to act like a provider. So we ended things officially, where I am now. I'm still at my parents' place while I save up for my own apartment. My mom has been supportive even if she thinks I was too harsh, and my dad and stepdad both said I did the right thing. I haven't seen Sophie since the school event. That stings the most, because she had nothing to do with any of this. She's just a sweet little kid who deserves way more than what the adults in her life are giving her. But I know dragging this out would only confuse her more, so I stepped back completely. As for Erica, we haven't spoken in about a month. Last I heard through mutual friends, she's still working the caregiver job and hasn't gone after Jason for child support. I hope she figures it out, truly. But it won't. Be with me, TL. DRI 24M broke up with my girlfriend 23F. Single mom after she refused to pursue child support from my ex-roommate 29M, the father. I realized she expected me to step up financially for her daughter while refusing to let me have a say in her care. After months of back and forth, I ended it for good. I still care about her daughter, but couldn't stay in a relationship where I was treated like an outsider while being asked to provide. Stories. Number 4, my kid has discovered self-stimulation, and I asked her to keep it private. Am I doing this? Right? My almost 5-year-old kid has discovered self-stimulation by crossing her legs tightly while lying down on her stomach and shifting around. She does it mostly in the evening, on the family sofa as we watch a movie or something before bed, or generally when she's chilling out. She gets sweaty from the effort and a bit noisy. It'll last a bit and then eventually she'll get distracted by something or get tired and stop. While not an issue in itself, it has gotten to the point that that's how she relaxes. So, I decided to talk to her about private acts, and where and when they can be appropriate. She's already clear on topics like the concept of private parts, and activities such as changing clothes and going to the bathroom that are intended as private. She knows no one is allowed to touch her private parts, and to tell me if anyone ever does. So I explained to her that her relaxation technique, that's the actual language I used. We talk often of stretching and dance techniques because she's into ballet, so it felt like wording she'd recognize. She calls it doing crisscross, involves her private parts, and therefore is a private activity that can be done when she's alone, in her room. She asked questions like, "Can I do it in the living room if no one else is there?" So, I was reassured that I likely didn't make it sound like something bad or taboo, just private. Since then, she's done it less, but she'll still drift into it sometimes when she's relaxing, and I will usually distract her with a question or a request, offer, like "Will you help me unload the dishwasher?" which she usually really enjoys. But I've also asked her once if she'd like to go upstairs a little early, and she just laughs every time like I caught her sneaking a cookie. She'll generally stop and change positions, and as I said, it has been happening less since we spoke about it. So I have faith she's internalizing the societally accepted behavior, and I won't need to regulate her much in the future. But I would like a second opinion on whether I'm going about this the right way. Obviously, my goal is to foster her having a healthy relationship with herself and her body, letting her know she can always talk to me, but also helping her learn how to recognize and enforce in herself and others social boundaries meant to support mutual respect and individual safety. Throwaway, because it's about a minor. Also, I'm a little embarrassed because I'm also really trying not to come off as awkward with her, but my own upbringing made me a little prudish maybe. Edit. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to reply, share their experience and exchange considerations, both as parents and grown children, or as professionals in the field. I wasn't expecting so much feedback, but as a few of you noted, it's a topic we may tend to shy away from even as grown adults, and therefore a conversation that is all the more important to have. To those of you who shared painful memories, my heart swells for each and every one of you, and I have shed more than one tear reading your replies. While our experiences may differ, my childhood was also marked by failures from those who were meant to protect and care for me. But today, every moment, every effort, and every step forward I take in attempting to give my children only the very best of me is not just for them, but for myself, and for you, and for every child who has ever been made to feel alone or hurt, scared or ashamed. I hope the love I pour into them reaches as far as it's come, past heartbreak and failures and hurt and loneliness that, it turns out, only made its well deeper, and somehow echo in your lives as your words have reached mine, making me better for it. Secure in the knowledge that shame cycles can be broken, confident in the fact that, while we may make mistakes, intention molds as much as actions. May all your lives be full of the same understanding, openness and kindness you've shown me. And, not to be forgotten, lots of joyful distractions, stories. Number 5, my husband can't put our kids to bed. Without chaos and I'm losing my mind. Hi Reddit. I really need to vent and maybe get some perspective because this is eating away at me. I, 35F, let's call me Emily, have been married to my husband, 37M, Mark, for 12 years. We have 3 kids, Sophie 10F, Lucas 7M, and Mia 5F. Mark is a loving dad in many ways, but bedtime has become this nightly battlefield that makes me dread evenings. The bedtime routine, we've always shared bedtime duty. I usually put Sophie down myself since she's older and pretty independent, while Mark and I take turns with Lucas and Mia. In theory, that sounds fair. In practice, it's been a total disaster for the past 5 months. Almost every night it's Mark's turn. Mia ends up crying hysterically. Sometimes Lucas joins in too. They scream for me, run out of their rooms, or cry until I give in. Meanwhile, Mark either loses his patience and yells, or he throws up his hands and lets them wander downstairs to find me. Tonight was the perfect example. I was in the living room cleaning up after dinner when Mia came downstairs sobbing because she was mad at Daddy. It wasn't even something big, just that he told her she couldn't have water after brushing her teeth. I tried to get her back upstairs, but she clung to me and refused, so I asked Sophie to go tell Mark to come and get Mia. She went upstairs, came back about 5 seconds later and said, "He said no." I couldn't believe it. By then, Lucas had also come downstairs, crying that he wanted me too. Mark finally came down looking furious and demanded I help him. I said no. I told him he needed to handle it. He snapped that, "The only thing I did wrong is that I'm not you, my breaking point. Normally, if the kids are truly distraught, I step in. But this happens almost every other night. And tonight I just couldn't do it again. I was exhausted from the day, from cleaning, from constantly being the default parent. I feel like if the kids are rejecting Mark's bedtime, it's because something is off in how he handles it. He can be great with them during the day. He'll roughhouse, play catch with Lucas, or help Sophie with her math homework. But he has no patience for calm, structured tasks. Reading stories, brushing teeth, tucking them in. He's either rushing, snapping, or losing it. The kids aren't spoiled. They aren't manipulative. They're just kids who want consistency. They know when I put them to bed, they'll get cuddles, stories, and patience. With Mark, they get irritation and unpredictable reactions. Why it's so hard for context, Mark was diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. He's been on medication for about a year, and to be fair, he has improved in some areas. But he's also spent his entire life relying on what I now see as weaponized incompetence. If something is hard or frustrating for him, he throws it back on me. Bedtime is one of those things. The kids push boundaries because they're kids, and instead of holding firm with kindness, he escalates. If they reject him, it triggers him, and he spirals. It's like he takes it as a personal insult that they want mom instead. Meanwhile, I'm the one doing everything else, arranging playdates, planning activities, handling school forms, cooking, cleaning, packing lunches, and all I'm asking for is one solid bedtime routine that doesn't end with 3 kids crying in my lap while my husband sulks in the other room. Where I'm at tonight, I refused to help. I ignored him and kept cleaning. He stormed off and we barely spoke for the rest of the night, but I feel like I've hit a wall. I'm so burned out. I feel like I never get a break. Even if Mark is technically doing bedtime, it still falls on me when the kids inevitably come running downstairs or he calls for backup. And honestly, I'm starting to resent him for not putting in the work to bond with them in the quieter, calmer ways that matter. I don't want to feel this way about my husband. I know he loves our kids. I know he's trying, in his own way. But I'm touched out, exhausted, and so frustrated I could scream. I just want 1 damn hour at night to sit down without someone climbing on me or crying for me. I don't even know if I'm looking for advice, or just reassurance that I'm not crazy for thinking this isn't sustainable. Update: I should add that Mark has been working on his ADHD. He's more self-aware than he used to be, and he tries harder not to blow up over little things. But the kids not listening, which again, they're kids, is like a red rag to a bull for him. And when they say, "I want mommy," he completely shuts down. The inconsistency in his behavior is affecting all of us. Sophie is old enough to roll her eyes at it, but Lucas and Mia are still little, and they just don't know what to expect. It makes bedtime this emotional minefield every single night. I don't know, Reddit. How do I get my husband to really step up and stop expecting me to fix everything? Is this just an ADHD parenting struggle, or is it deeper than that? I love him, I love my kids, but this is wearing me down. Update: hi again. I wasn't planning to come back, but the response on my first post was overwhelming. Thank you to everyone who took the time to write thoughtful comments. I read through everything, even the harsh ones, and it really made me step back and look at what was happening in our house. A lot of you pointed out that Mark's ADHD doesn't excuse him from putting in the emotional labor of parenting, and that really hit me. I realized I'd been walking this fine line of giving him grace because of his diagnosis, but also allowing myself and the kids to carry the fallout of his inconsistency. So I sat him down one evening after the kids were asleep. I was nervous, because any conversation that sounds even remotely critical can set him off. But I told him flat out, I can't keep being the only parent who can manage bedtime. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the kids that they feel like they can't rely on you for this. At first he got defensive. He went into his usual cycle. They just want you, I'm doing my best, it's impossible to compete with you. I stayed calm, which I'll admit, I don't always manage. I told him, I'm not asking you to compete, I'm asking you to connect. They need their dad for more than roughhousing and fun during the day. That seemed to land differently. He was quiet for a while, which is rare for him. Trying something new. The next week we tried something a little different. Instead of switching off randomly, we made a structured routine. Mark puts Lucas and Mia to bed on set nights. We picked 3 nights a week. I stay completely out of sight during those nights. No rescuing, no backup. The kids know. It's Daddy's night, period. On my nights, I do the full routine so they still get that consistency. It wasn't smooth sailing at first. The first couple of nights, Mia had a meltdown and tried the old pattern of running downstairs. Mark started to lose it, but I didn't intervene. I told him beforehand, if you send them down to me, I'm sending them right back to you. And I did. He was pissed the first time, but after that, he realized he had no choice but to figure it out. Small breakthroughs by the third week, things got better. Mark stopped rushing through bedtime and actually started slowing down. He read books. With them, instead of just telling them to brush teeth and get in bed, he gave them choices. Do you want the rocket pajamas or the dinosaur ones? 1 book or 2 books tonight? It sounds small, but it changed everything. Lucas, who normally cries for me, actually asked if Daddy could read him the same. Silly story 2 nights in a row. Mia is still the hardest to win over, but even she started to soften. Last night she climbed into his lap for story time without complaining. Mark admitted later that he realized he'd been treating bedtime like a chore to get through instead of a chance to bond. He said he never saw it that way until I spelled it out, where we're at now. It's not perfect. There are still nights when he loses his patience too quickly, and I have to remind him that the kids are reacting to his energy. But overall, I've seen progress. And honestly, I've started to feel less resentful, because I can actually sit downstairs for an hour and breathe without being interrupted. The other big thing, he finally agreed to try therapy again. His doctor had suggested it before, but he brushed it off. Now he sees that the kid's rejection triggers something deep for him, and he wants to work on handling that better. I don't know if this will be the forever solution, but for the first time in months, I don't feel like bedtime is a total war zone. The kids are learning that Daddy can be consistent too, and Mark is learning that it's not about being perfect, it's about showing up with patience. I know this update doesn't tie everything up in a neat bow, but I wanted to be honest. Parenting isn't about instant fixes. It's about showing up over and over, even when it's hard. Thanks again to everyone who gave advice, even the tough love. It really did push me to stop enabling and to draw firmer boundaries. Final update. Hi again. Reddit. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I think it's finally time to close this chapter. At least for now. A lot has changed in our household, mostly for the better, but it took a lot of intentional effort and a few tense moments to get here. Mark's growth. The therapy really seemed to help. He's been working with a counselor on his ADHD and emotional regulation, specifically around parenting. He now recognizes that bedtime isn't just a task. It's an opportunity to bond with the kids, teach them patience, and set boundaries in a loving way. It hasn't been perfect. There are still nights when Mia cries, Lucas tests him, and he gets frustrated. But instead of giving up or calling me for backup immediately, he now takes a deep breath and uses the strategies he learned in therapy. He asks the kids what's wrong, talks them through their feelings, and then calmly gets them back to bed. Even more importantly, he's consistent. The kids know when it's Daddy's night. It's Daddy's night. They still ask for me sometimes, but that's normal. They've started to respond positively to him, which has been a huge relief. My relief, I can't express how much lighter it feels not to be the default parent at bedtime anymore. I still help on my nights, but now I actually get the downtime I've been craving. I can read, drink my tea, or just sit on the couch without a child screaming for attention every 5 minutes. Mark and I even implemented a team check-in every Sunday night. We talk about what went well during the week, where the kids struggled, and how we can support each other. It sounds formal, but it's honestly been really effective. It keeps both of us on the same page and prevents the nighttime chaos from spilling over into the next day. The kids' Sophie, 10F, has been incredibly patient and observant throughout this process. She notices the changes and even complimented Mark, recently saying, "Daddy reads the books differently now. He's calmer, and it's nicer." Lucas, 7M, still tests boundaries, but he also comes up to Mark without crying to ask for bedtime stories or help brushing his teeth. Mia, 5F, is still the trickiest. She's naturally more sensitive, but even she now climbs into his lap for stories without melting down. It's slow, but it's progress. What I learned. This whole experience taught me a lot about boundaries, patience, and realistic expectations. I had been enabling the chaos by jumping in immediately and rescuing Mark from situations he could handle himself. By stepping back, I forced him to step up, and it paid off, not perfectly, but meaningfully. I also learned that ADHD, even when medicated, doesn't erase challenges with impulsivity or patience. It requires conscious effort, practice, and sometimes professional guidance. And that's okay. What wasn't okay was letting me and the kids bear the brunt of it every night. Where we are now. Bedtime is no longer a battlefield. Mark is more consistent, patient, and calm. The kids are happier and feel secure with both parents. I finally have time to breathe and recharge in the evenings. Our partnership feels more equal. I'm no longer the default fixer every night. It's not perfect. It never will be. But it's manageable, and it's better than it's been in years. I'm proud of Mark for putting in the work, and proud of myself for holding firm boundaries. TLDR My husband, Mark, 37M, struggled for years with putting our kids Sophie 10F, Lucas 7M, Mia 5F to bed due to ADHD, impatience, and impulsivity. Bedtime was a nightly disaster with yelling, crying, and me constantly rescuing him. After stepping back, setting firm boundaries, and getting him into therapy, he's now consistent, calm, and patient at bedtime. The kids are happier, our evenings are peaceful, and I finally get downtime. It's not perfect, but it's sustainable, and our partnership feels more equal. Stories number 6. My husband walked 2 miles home from the hospital. Because I refused to pick him up. Reddit. Buckle up because this is going to be long. I 34F, let's call me Jessica, have been married to my husband Mark, 37M for almost 10 years. We've been through a lot together, but the hardest part of our marriage has always been his health. Mark has type 1 diabetes, and to put it bluntly, he manages it terribly. The history when you marry someone with a chronic illness, you know. There will be challenges. What I didn't realize was just how much of his illness I would be managing for him. Over the years, I've found Mark near death over a dozen times. His blood sugar has dropped into the 20s, which is basically coma-level low. A few times, I've had to call an ambulance because he was unresponsive, and I couldn't get him up. Sometimes he's conscious but incoherent, other times he's completely gone. It's terrifying. I sleep light because I'm constantly afraid I'll wake up and find him cold and gone. Mark brushes it off like it's normal. He always says, "That's just what happens with diabetes." But for me, it's like living with a ticking time bomb. To make things worse, when his sugar drops, he gets mean. Sometimes he's goofy or confused, but other times he turns into a completely different person. He's spit in my face before. He's called me a whore. He's screamed at me like I was his worst enemy. I remind myself it's the low sugar talking, not him, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. The pump problem, in the past, Mark had an insulin pump that helped regulate his blood sugar, but his broke, and we've been waiting for insurance to approve a new one. In the meantime, he's supposed to check his sugar regularly, eat balanced meals, and manage his insulin doses carefully. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. Mark eats whatever. He feels like, ignores checking his sugar half the time, and acts like I'm nagging him when I remind him. He's 280 pounds, refuses to make any diet changes, and gets defensive when I bring up his health. The argument a few nights ago, we had a fight. Nothing massive, but it ended with me asking him to sleep on the couch. I hated doing that because, if he goes low in the middle of the night, I usually catch it since we sleep together. I begged him, literally begged him, to eat something before bed. I said, "Please, Mark, I'm 8 months pregnant. I can't deal with another episode tonight. Just eat something solid." He rolled his eyes and brushed me off. The 4 a.m. incident. I woke up at 4 a.m. to pee pregnancy life. On my way back to bed, something in me said, "Check on him." Sure enough, Mark was drenched in sweat. I shook him awake and he immediately started screaming at me, "Kill yourself, bitch!" That was it. I called 911. When the EMTs arrived, Mark fought them. He was aggressive, violent, ripping out IVs. It took 7 men to hold him down and get him stable. I just stood there, crying and shaking, watching the man I married become someone unrecognizable. Finally, they got his sugar up. He became coherent, but they insisted on taking him to the ER to make sure his levels stayed stable. My breaking point. Here's where I admit something. I didn't go with him. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically. I'm carrying his child. I've been through this nightmare too many times, and I just couldn't do it again. So I let the ambulance take him and went back to bed. At 6:30 a.m., Mark called me from the hospital. His voice was calm now. He said, "I need you to come get me." And I said, "No." Then I hung up. The fallout. Mark walked home. 2 miles. In his socks. When he came in around 8:30 a.m., he was furious. He said, "I can't believe you made me walk home like that. You don't do that to someone you love." His parents called me later and said the same thing, that I was cruel, heartless, and abandoning him in his time of need. His mom, Carol, said, "You're his wife. You vowed to be there in sickness and health. You don't just leave him like that." But here's the thing. I didn't make him walk. He could have called his parents. He could have called his brother Ryan. He could have called an Uber. He could have called literally anyone. He had options. He chose to walk. And honestly, I don't feel guilty. Not one bit, my side. I've been holding this man together for years. I've sacrificed sleep, health, and now I'm pregnant and stressing myself out, constantly worrying about him. He doesn't take responsibility for his illness, doesn't acknowledge the emotional damage it does to me, and refuses to change his behavior. I didn't cause this. I didn't force him to walk. I simply chose not to be his safety net this one time. Now I'm sitting here, 8 months pregnant, wondering if I'm the villain. His family sure thinks I am. Mark is giving me the cold shoulder and muttering things like, "If you really loved me, you'd have been there." But love doesn't mean destroying yourself for someone who refuses to take care of themselves. TL, my husband, 37M, has poorly managed type 1 diabetes. He gets violent and verbally abusive when his sugar is low. I, 34F, 8 months pregnant, called 911 when he dropped dangerously low. He was taken to the ER. When he called at 6:30 a.m. asking for a ride home, I refused. He walked 2 miles home in his socks. Now he and his family blame me for abandoning him, but I don't feel guilty. Stories. Number 7. My patient's Mael tried to force her way into the birth suite, and I had to step in. Hi Reddit. I never thought I'd be posting here, but last week something happened at work that I just cannot get out of my head. I work as a midwife in a hospital in Ohio, and while I've seen my fair share of stressful situations, this one made me feel like I was walking a tightrope between doing my job and being accused of overstepping. I'll try to give as much detail as possible so you can understand why this shook me. The setup. It was last Tuesday. A young couple, maybe early 20s, came in around 11 a.m. Lily, 22F. The mom, very sweet, first-time mom, clearly nervous. Chris, 24M. The dad, Lily's fiancé, not married yet, Janet, 48F. The mother-in-law, Chris's mom. Me, Hannah, 29F. The midwife on duty. From the beginning, Lily was polite, thanking me constantly between contractions. She was shaking a bit from nerves, but she kept apologizing for being a bother, which broke my heart because giving birth is literally the opposite of being a bother. Chris, on the other hand, was, well, something else. He plopped down in the chair, immediately on his phone, and barely acknowledged me when I came in. When I explained what was going on with Lily's dilation and contractions, he just grunted, "Uh-huh," without looking up. At first I brushed it off. Some partners panic or shut down during labor, but when Lily asked him for some water and he snapped, "Get it yourself, you're not dying," my stomach dropped. The early hours. Around 1 p.m., Lily was about 4 centimeters dilated. She was progressing slowly, so I encouraged her to walk the halls, breathe, and try the birthing ball. She was doing great, but Chris kept sighing and rolling his eyes every time she asked for something. When I asked Lily if she had a birth plan, she smiled weakly and said, "Yeah, just me and Chris in the room, no one else. I really want it private." That seemed clear enough to me. The bombshell. Fast forward to about 7 p.m. Lily was in active labor now, 6 to 7 centimeter contractions hitting hard. She was sweaty, exhausted, and crying quietly while holding my hand. Chris was, you guessed it, scrolling TikTok. Then I got a message from the front desk. The patient's MIL is here and demanding to be let into the delivery room. I swear my stomach did a flip. I went in and gently asked Lily and Chris if they wanted Janet Mill in the room. Lily immediately shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Chris, without missing a beat, said, "Yeah, let her in." I froze. The fight, Lily. "Chris, no. I told you I don't want her here. Why would you do that?" Chris, "Because she's my mom and this is her grandbaby. She deserves to be here." Lily, "I didn't even know she was coming. You said it. Would just be us." Chris, "It's not just about you, Lily. The baby is as much my mom's as it is ours." At that point, Lily was sobbing through contractions, literally shaking, saying, "Please, I don't want her in here, please." Chris leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, muttering, "You're being ridiculous." Meanwhile, I'm standing there thinking, holy hell, I'm a brand new midwife. And this is the exact nightmare scenario they warn us about. My decision hospital policy is clear. The birthing mother has the ultimate say about who is in the room. Period. Even if the partner disagrees. So I told the nurse outside not to let Janet in. When Janet heard that, she lost it. I could hear her yelling from the hallway, "This is my grandchild. You can't keep me out. She's manipulating my son." Chris stormed out to talk to her, and they both started yelling about how I was meddling in family matters. Meanwhile, Lily was clutching my hand, whispering, Thank you." After the birth, Lily delivered a healthy baby boy around 2 a.m. She cried when they placed him on her chest. It was honestly beautiful. Chris did cut the cord, but even then he looked annoyed, like he was just waiting for it to be over. When it was all done, Janet finally came in. She immediately went for the baby, practically shoving Lily's arm aside. I stepped in and reminded her gently, "Mom gets first skin to skin." Janet glared at me like I had 3 heads. Later, both Chris and Janet confronted me at the nurse's station. Chris, "You had no right to exclude her. You manipulated Lily when she was vulnerable." Janet, "This is why women today don't respect family. You think you know better than blood." I told them calmly that my job is to advocate for the patient in labor. End of story. But honestly, I went home that morning and cried. I kept second-guessing myself. Did I cross a line? Did I make things worse for Lily in the long run? Reflection. I know in my bones that I did the right thing. Lily was the patient. She was the one in pain, pushing out a human being, and begging not to have someone in the room. That should always trump anyone else's feelings. But I can't stop thinking about her going home with Chris and Janet. If they were that dismissive of her boundaries during labor, how will they treat her postpartum? How will they respect her as a mother? I hope she finds her voice. She deserves so much better. TLDR. I'm a midwife. During labor, the mom begged not to have Mill in the room, but fiancé insisted. I sided with the mom and kept Mill out. Both fiancé and MIL accused me of meddling, but I know I was just doing my job. Update. Months later. Hey everyone, it's Hannah again, the midwife from Ohio who posted about the MIL situation during labor. I didn't expect my original post to get as much traction as it did, but thank you to everyone who commented and reassured me that I wasn't crazy for prioritizing Lily. At the time, I was honestly rattled. I had only been a licensed midwife for about a year, and to have a patient's fiancé and MIL corner me and accuse me of manipulating someone in labor was heavy. A lot of you asked if I'd see Lily again. Well, it happened. And oh boy, do I have an update. The unexpected reunion. Fast forward about 5 months. I was covering a shift on postpartum rounds. Sometimes we rotate to check in on previous patients or newborns who need follow-up care. I walked into one of the waiting areas and immediately recognized a face. Lily. She was sitting there with a stroller, rocking a baby boy who must have been about 4 or 5 months old by then. She looked tired, what new mom doesn't, but also lighter. Her shoulders weren't hunched, her face wasn't tight like it was during labor. She recognized me instantly too. Her whole expression softened and she said, "Oh my God, Hannah, you were my midwife when I had Mason." Yes, the baby's name is Mason. Adorable, chubby cheeks, drooling all over a stuffed giraffe. I sat down with her for a few minutes since I wasn't in a rush. She thanked me, again, for standing up for her that night. She said she'd thought about it often, how she'd felt like everyone in the room, Chris, Janet, even the staff outside wanted to bulldoze her wishes, and I had been the only one who said, "What Lily wants matters." She actually teared up telling me this. What happened after the birth naturally, I was curious how things went after they left the hospital, so I gently asked how she'd been doing. That's when the floodgates opened. Chris didn't step up at all. She said he acted resentful after Mason was born, like Lily had ruined his freedom. He barely helped with feedings, and when Mason cried, Chris would hand him back immediately. Janet was overbearing. She started showing up unannounced to help, but really just criticized everything Lily did. If the baby cried, Janet would snatch him and say, "He just needs his grandma, you don't know what you're doing." At one point, Janet even told Lily she was lucky Chris put up with her, because plenty of men would have left by now. It broke my heart to hear all this, but then Lily surprised me. The turning point, she told me that what happened in the delivery room, me backing her up, stuck in her mind. For months afterward, when Chris or Janet dismissed her, she'd think back to that moment and remind herself, "No, I have a voice. What I want matters." About 2 months postpartum, she finally hit her breaking point. Chris went out with his buddies for the third weekend in a row, leaving her alone with Mason, and when she asked him to help the next morning, he said, "Stop nagging. This is harder on me than you," she snapped. Packed up a few essentials for Mason, drove to her sister's house, and stayed there for 2 weeks. During that time, she realized she didn't want to go back. She met with a lawyer with her parents' support, and is now in the process of filing for full custody. Chris can have visitation, but she's not putting her life back in that house. Where things stand now, Chris is apparently furious, telling everyone Lily stole his son. But from what she described, he hasn't exactly been fighting hard for custody. She said he seems more interested in posting gym selfies and blaming her online than actually showing up. Janet has been blowing up Lily's phone with guilt trips, but Lily blocked her. She said Janet showed up once at her sister's house demanding to see the baby, and Lily's brother-in-law threatened to call the cops if she didn't leave. Lily herself is now living with her sister while she gets back on her feet. She's considering going back to school part-time for nursing, which made me smile so big. And she's just focusing on being a mom right now. My feelings, I won't lie. Hearing all this made me so emotional. As midwives, we sometimes only see a snapshot of someone's life. The birth, the immediate chaos, and then they're gone. You wonder if they're okay, if they're safe, if your presence mattered at all. To hear Lily say that my one decision that night, not letting Janet in, gave her the courage months later to walk away from a toxic situation. It honestly gave me goosebumps. It reminded me why I do this job. It's not just about delivering babies. It's about advocating for women in some of the most vulnerable, life-changing moments of their lives. TLDR of the update, I ran into Lily 5 months later. She left Chris because he was neglectful and siding with his mom over her. She's now living with her sister, raising baby Mason, and starting over. She told me that my support during her labor gave her the courage to stand up for herself later. Final update, 1 year later, hi again. It's Hannah the midwife who originally posted about not letting a mill into a birth suite. I wasn't sure I'd ever post again, but enough of you asked for closure and, well, I actually got some. It's been about a year since Mason's birth, and through a mix of small-town coincidence and mutual acquaintances, I've learned how things turned out for everyone involved. Lily's new life first. The best news: Lily and Mason are thriving. Ran into her at a local coffee shop recently, and Mason is now a bouncing, energetic 1-year-old. He's walking well, wobbling, babbling up a storm, and absolutely obsessed with throwing goldfish crackers on the floor. Lily looked radiant in a way I hadn't seen before. She was laughing with a group of friends, her hair was done, and for once she didn't look like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. She told me she's now officially enrolled in a nursing program. It'll take a few years since she's balancing school and motherhood, but she said she's never felt more sure of her path. She's living in her own small apartment now. She moved out of her sister's place once things stabilized. Her parents help with babysitting, and she's built a little community of other young moms in her area. What happened with Chris? As for Chris, the fiancé who sat on his phone during labor and tried to bring his mom in. From what Lily shared, he pretty much self-destructed. After she filed for custody, he showed up to mediation twice, both times more interested in posturing and blaming her than actually working out a parenting plan. The court didn't look kindly on his lack of involvement. In the end, Lily was granted primary custody. Chris has visitation rights, but he rarely uses them. Lily said he shows up maybe once a month, usually for a couple of hours, then disappears again. She admitted she was sad for Mason at first. No kid deserves an absent father. But over time she realized Mason was better off surrounded by love rather than half-hearted attention. And Janet the Mill? Oh boy, Janet did not take losing access well. She apparently went around town painting Lily as a manipulative woman who stole her grandson. But as people started noticing that Chris himself wasn't showing up for visits, her story lost weight. The kicker? Lily told me that Janet once tried to file for grandparent visitation rights. Yes, that's a thing in some states. But because Chris himself wasn't exercising his visitation, the court denied it. The judge basically said, if the father isn't showing up, the grandmother doesn't get to swoop in and replace him. Janet reportedly had a meltdown in court. Since then, Lily hasn't heard from her directly, and she's blocked on every platform. Lily's words that stuck with me. When we parted at the coffee shop, Lily hugged me and said, "You'll never know how much it meant that night." I was terrified, in pain, and I felt like nobody cared what I wanted. You were the first person who stood up for me. That moment changed everything for me, Hannah. It made me realize I wasn't weak. I just needed to believe in my own voice. I teared up right there in the cafe. Because as a midwife, you dream of empowering women, but you don't always get to see the ripple effects. Final reflections. This whole experience taught me something I'll carry for the rest of my career. Birth is not a spectator sport. It's about the mother first and foremost. Partners and families may mean well or not, but their role is to support, not to control. A single moment of advocacy can change the trajectory of someone's life. Lily found her voice in that delivery room, and a year later, she's building a better future for herself and Mason, free from people who only weighed her down. I can't take credit for her courage. That was all her. But if I played even a tiny role in reminding her that her voice mattered, then I know I chose the right career. TLDR Final Update. A year later, Lily is thriving as a single mom, in nursing school, raising baby Mason in a loving environment. Chris rarely shows up for visitation, and Janet Mill even tried and failed to get court-ordered grandparent rights. Lily said my support in the delivery room helped her find the strength to leave and build a new life. Stories number 8. Eta for losing my mind after my wife's friend made her drink alcohol and tried to hook her up with another man. My wife went out with her friend for dinner. When her friend came over, she told us that it would just be her, my wife, and her other friends, and they'll be back in 2 hours or so, and my wife didn't really want to go, but I encouraged her to have fun. I was at home looking after our daughter, but my wife, after an hour, suddenly texts me to pick her up, and that she's drunk, and there's a man next to her and she feels uncomfortable. Even if she wasn't uncomfortable, I would have went anyway. I was confused cause it was supposed to be girls-only night. So why is a man involved? I asked my Sil to look after my daughter and went to pick my wife up. I was angry, but I didn't want to embarrass my wife in front of everyone. So I said that my wife is drunk, and she's never had alcohol, and our daughter is calling for her, and I took her home. My wife told me that she was shocked to see a man joining them on dinner, and he was being over-friendly with her. He grabbed her hand and kept touching her shoulder, and she didn't want to drink, but everyone kept pressuring her. I told my wife it's not her fault and she shouldn't blame herself. But I wanted clarification. I called her friend and asked her as to why would she make my wife drink alcohol, and why is a man involved and we weren't informed. She doubles down and said she doesn't need to inform me and my wife should be able to handle alcohol, and she should be okay with being around men. I called her a bitch, and she's no true friend of my wife, and told her to stay away from both of us. I ended up telling everyone, their actual group, about what she did, and most of the women cut her off, and she's as expected pissed, and she said that I didn't need to be so dramatic, and she's lost some of her friends because of me, and a few from their group says the same thing. It's so stressful to go back and forth with these people, and I just want to cut them out of my life. They are cancer. The good ones can stay friends with my wife, and these? I want to ruin them. Update. Aita, for losing my mind after my wife's friend made her drink alcohol and tried to hook her up with another man. English second language. My wife went out. Her friend and this ex-friend of her lied to us that it was girls' night, but she invited a man who kept touching my wife, her shoulder, and her hand, and when my wife was uncomfortable she called me to pick her up, and her so-called friend made her drink alcohol. My wife had never drank alcohol before, but her foreigner friend forced her and this man was touching her. Since I brought my wife back home we have been living stress-free with our daughter, but her ex-friend kept texting my wife that she wants to explain herself and my wife shouldn't cut her off. When I asked my wife what she plans to do about her ex-friend, she said she wants to talk to her, but she wants to cut her off. But before she cuts her off she wants to talk to her. I said that she would just be reminded of getting drunk and getting touched by that man, and she should just let it go and she should focus on our family, our daughter. And she agreed, but she's still disappointed. And I think it's just her trauma and reopen wounds. I called her ex-friend and told her to stay away from us, but she said that it's my wife's decision and I shouldn't interfere, and stop reading her texts. My wife's friends were already angry at her. And so was I, and we told her parents what she did. And she's furious because we are bad guys? She thinks she isn't and I shouldn't have made it public, and my wife said that we shouldn't have made it public. My wife's good friends is with me and they encouraged me and they said they'll talk to my wife and tell her that it was necessary. Well, am I asshole for telling my wife's ex-friend's parents of what she did? Stories number 9. Aita for getting upset. That my husband wanted to play with a friend after I fell in the shower? Hi, I hope that I'm in the right place. I need help. I need to know if I'm me 46F and my partner 53M have been together for 5.5 years. We have a beautiful blended family that includes 5 children. He has a very high sexual appetite, TBH. I think he has a sex addiction, but I digress. For the last 15 months or so, we have been dealing with my spine becoming worse and worse. I had a fusion in 2021, and I just recently had a second revision fusion on 7/14/25. This one was much worse, and my recovery isn't going very well. I'm still in a lot of pain, and I can't do much of anything for myself, my household, my children, or my hypersexualized husband. I feel like a complete failure as a partner. As you can guess, I haven't been able to quench his sexual thirst in quite some time now. He wants me to become okay with him stepping outside of our relationship so that someone else can start taking care of those needs. Permanently, I assume, as he has made no mention of until you're better. I asked what we do about getting my needs met, and he said that he was trying to, but I can't take it yet. Nothing about my finding someone to take care of me, but I don't think that he cares about anyone's needs but his own. I'm feeling so unloved and undesirable now. I don't think that he wants me anymore, and I don't know what to do. My 3 biological children see him as dad, with my daughters calling him daddy. Their father passed away in 2020. I can't leave him. If I try to talk to him about it, we end up fighting with him telling me that I'm not being supportive of his needs. I don't know what to do anymore. I gave in and decided that I'd let him bring a new partner to our home. Big mistake on my part. I'm still dealing with a ton of neuropathic pain in my back and legs, especially my left leg and ankle. While he was getting intimate with a total stranger, I was screaming and crying in absolute agony. At one point, I decided to take a hot shower and see if that helped. Well, I slipped and fell in the shower. And I fell hard, hitting my spine that was just operated on 6 weeks ago. He came to check on me and got me to our bed and told me that he was going to tell his friend to go home. But he didn't. He was hoping that if he got me to bed, that he'd be able to massage me and get me to sleep, and then go back. I'm crying in some of the worst pain ever. And he asks me what he should do because she was still there. And I lost it. I'm supposed to be his life partner. We have a family together. And yet it was more important to be with a random stranger and get laid than stay with me and take care of me. I got so angry. I'm still angry and hurt. He actually asked permission to go get laid while I was laying on our bed bawling my eyes out and screaming in pain. I just had major back surgery and has fallen on my back and really hurt myself. And he wanted to be with someone else and let me suffer alone. Oh, BTW, I'm posting this from the ER. He brought me but threw a fit about it and was genuinely upset that he had to ask his friend to leave. I'm completely dumbfounded and can't believe that he would rather hook up with a stranger than take care of me and make sure that I was all right. He says that I'm tatch for being selfish because I knew how much he needed this, and a part of him feels like I did all of this on purpose. I didn't. I had major surgery and he said that he would take care of me during my recovery. I say that he's ta for putting his sexual wants ahead of my well-being. So, good people of Reddit and the RR-ATA readers, what say you? ITA? ETA. First off, wow. I did not expect this post to blow up the way that it did. Thank you to each and every one of you who has commented. Even those of you who put me down and talked worse to me than my husband ever has. I have taken a lot of time to process what you all have said. I've begun talking to a divorce lawyer, family and friends to begin planning my exit strategy. I'm in the midst of a really nasty recovery right now, and I'm on disability leave from work, so it's going to take some time. My best friends are going to help me get a little revenge and be a bit petty when my kids leave him for good. I just wish it didn't mean also leaving my bonus kids, my stepchildren whom I love, as though I birthed them myself. However, I will be sure to make it known to the two of them that I will always be there for them and anything that they may need. Just because I'm leaving their dad and I won't be living with them doesn't mean that I can't still be there for them and still be the mom that they have come to love. Their bio mom is a bigger idiot and than I could ever be. There will be absolutely no intimacy between us ever again. My mom comes to take my kids out to play at the park or the rec center, etc., a couple times a week. I am going to slowly and discreetly start packing and sending stuff to my mom's house for her to hold on to until I can get away from him. My late ex-husband, whom I was divorced from when he passed away, was physically and emotionally, verbally abusive toward the end of our marriage. I never even considered that what my soon-to-be ex-husband was doing was considered abuse. You all really helped open my eyes up. So thank you for that. I think it's time for this mama to be single and alone right now, so that I can just focus on the well-being of my children. Again, thank you all. Stories number 10. My friend made me and my husband sleep next to her 12-year-old daughter. So this happened over Labor Day weekend, and I'm still kind of reeling from how bizarre and uncomfortable the whole thing was. I 30F. Let's say my name is Rachel, have been friends with Samantha 36F for about 2 years now. We met through work and hit it off well enough to hang out outside the office. She's fun, social, and always planning trips or outings. She has a 12-year-old daughter, Emily, from a previous relationship, and she's been dating her boyfriend, Brian 38M, for a little over a year. A couple of weeks ago, Samantha invited me and my husband Ethan, 30M, to spend Labor Day weekend at Brian's parents' lake house. Samantha described it as rustic but fun, and honestly the words lake house plus holiday weekend sounded like a nice break. Ethan wasn't 100% sure about it. He's more of a stay home and relax type, but I convinced him to come. The arrival, we got there Friday afternoon. The house was small but cute. Definitely cozy, as Samantha had warned. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom setup. Very old-school cabin style, not modern at all. Brian's parents, Mark and Linda, were already there and super welcoming. During the day, it was actually really fun. We swam, grilled out, went tubing, and played cards. It was a full house but manageable, and I kept telling myself, this is exactly why people do lake weekends, where things got weird, but then nighttime came. Naturally, Mark and Linda took the master bedroom. Samantha and Brian had already claimed the guest bedroom. That left Ethan and me with the pull-out couch in the living room. At first I was a little annoyed. Like, okay, Samantha invited us down here, but she and Brian get the comfy bed while her guests get the lumpy pull-out? But fine, it's a lake house, not a hotel. I could deal with it. So Ethan and I were starting to get settled when Samantha suddenly said, "Oh, hang on, Emily. You should come out here with Rachel and Ethan." I thought she meant for a quick chat or to say goodnight. Nope. Samantha literally pulled Emily out of the guest bedroom, pointed to the non-pull-out section of the couch, basically the love seat part, and told her to sleep there. So picture this, Ethan and I are crammed onto the pullout, maybe 6 feet away. Emily, 12 years old, not our child, not even related to us, is curled up on the other half of the couch. The uncomfortable night Ethan immediately gave me a wide-eyed, WTF? Look. I tried to keep calm, but I was honestly just as uncomfortable. We couldn't even whisper to each other about how weird this was because there was a child sleeping right there. I felt like we were babysitting against our will. Like, what if she woke up scared in the middle of the night? What if she overheard us talking? What if she needed something? It just felt so inappropriate to be sharing sleeping space with a kid who wasn't ours. Ethan barely slept. He kept shifting around and at one point whispered, "I don't like this. I really don't like this." And I didn't either. The next morning at breakfast, Samantha acted totally normal, like nothing unusual had happened. Emily looked exhausted. I don't think she slept well either, and Ethan was grumpy as hell. The breaking point. That night, it happened again. Samantha told Emily to go bunk out with Rachel and Ethan, like it was no big deal. Ethan flat out whispered to me, "I want to go home." And honestly, I did too. But I didn't want to make a scene, especially since Brian's parents were being so hospitable. We toughed it out, but I barely slept because I was so anxious. Reflection. Now that we're back home, I can't shake how inappropriate and inconsiderate it was. I get that it's a small house and sleeping arrangements are limited. But why wouldn't Samantha and Brian let Emily sleep in their room? Why was it on us, the guests, to suddenly share a sleeping space with a child? Ethan said the whole situation made him feel gross, not because of Emily herself, she was polite and sweet, but because of how it looked and how it made us feel. Like, if Emily ever said she was uncomfortable or misremembered something, it could put us in a really bad position. I honestly just want to put some distance between me and Samantha now, because I can't imagine inviting friends somewhere and then throwing them into that scenario. TL. DR. My friend invited me and my husband to her boyfriend's parents' lake house. The house only had 2 bedrooms, so we accepted sleeping on the pull-out couch. But then she made her 12-year-old daughter sleep on the same couch, just the other section right next to us. It happened 2 nights in a row, and it made us deeply uncomfortable. Update. My friend made me and my husband sleep next to her. 12-YO daughter hi again. Everyone. I didn't expect so many people to respond to my original post, but reading through the comments really helped me sort through my feelings. A lot of you validated what Ethan and I were feeling, that it was uncomfortable, inappropriate, and honestly inconsiderate on Samantha's part. Some of you even pointed out things I hadn't fully processed at the time, like the potential risk of putting us in that situation with a child who isn't ours. So, here's what happened since that Labor Day weekend. The car ride home on the drive back, Ethan was quiet for the first half hour. Then he just let it out. "Rachel, that was the most uncomfortable 2 nights of my life. I don't ever want to do something like that again." And I agreed with him. We both felt like Samantha and Brian had completely disregarded how awkward it was. Ethan went so far as to say that if he sees Samantha again, he doesn't even want to pretend it was fine. Samantha reaches out. A couple days later, Samantha texted me, "Thanks again for coming to the lake. It was so fun. Emily really loved having you guys there too." That text set me off. I had spent 2 days mulling over how weird everything was, and here she was, acting like we had just had a magical family bonding weekend. So I responded, trying to be polite but clear. "We had fun during the day, but Ethan and I were uncomfortable with the sleeping arrangements. It didn't feel appropriate to have Emily out with us on the couch, and it made Ethan especially uneasy. I thought maybe she'd say, 'Oh my gosh, I didn't realize. Sorry,' or at least something. Instead, she doubled down. 'Well, it's a small house. Emily's used to crashing on the couch when we visit, and she's close with me, so I figured she'd be fine near you guys. I didn't think it was a big deal.' I reminded her that Ethan and I are not Emily's parents, and that it put us in a very awkward position. Her response? 'I think you're overreacting. If you can't handle being around kids, maybe trips like this aren't for you.' That really stung. Talking to Brian. The following weekend, Brian called Ethan. Apparently, Samantha had told him we were mad about the sleeping situation. Brian actually sounded reasonable, though. He admitted that he thought it was weird, too, but didn't want to push back on Samantha at the time. He said he would have been fine with Emily bunking in their room, but Samantha insisted it would be too cramped. Ethan straight up told Brian, "Look, it's not our kid. It made us really uncomfortable. We're not doing that again." Brian was quiet for a while and finally said, "Fair enough. I get it." The fallout. Since then, Samantha has been a little frosty with me at work. She's not being openly hostile, but it's that cold shoulder, I'm annoyed at you energy. We used to grab coffee together a couple of times a week. Now she doesn't even invite me. And honestly, I think I'm okay with that. This whole situation made me see our friendship differently. Before, I thought she was a little bossy but fun. Now I realize she's the kind of person who bulldozes others' comfort for her own convenience. And if she thinks I'm overreacting for not wanting to sleep next to her kid, then maybe our values are just too different. Where we stand now then. And I have agreed we won't be doing any more overnights with Samantha. If she invites us somewhere, it'll have to be a day trip or nothing. And if she pushes, I'll just be honest. I don't trust her judgment when it comes to boundaries. Do I feel bad for Emily? Yeah. None of this is her fault. She was just following her mom's instructions. She seemed embarrassed too, and that broke my heart. But at the end of the day, Ethan and I have to protect ourselves. And being forced to co-sleep in the same space as a 12-year-old we barely know is a hard line we won't ever cross again. TL. Dr. I confronted Samantha after the trip about making us share a sleeping space with her daughter. Instead of apologizing, she brushed it off and said I was overreacting. Brian privately admitted it was weird but didn't want to argue with her. Samantha's now giving me the cold shoulder at work, and I've decided our friendship is probably not worth keeping. Final update. Months later. My friend made me and my husband sleep next to her 12-year-old daughter. Hey everyone. I wasn't sure I'd ever come back with another update, but a lot has happened in the month since my last post. And honestly, it feels like things have reached their natural conclusion. Work tension. Escalated. So after my last update, Samantha was giving me the cold shoulder at work. At first I brushed it off, figured she needed time to cool down, but as the weeks went on it became obvious she was intentionally trying to isolate me. She stopped inviting me to team lunches, she cut me off in conversations, and one time, I overheard her telling another coworker, "Rachel just doesn't like kids, that's why she made such a big deal about Emily at the lake house." That really pissed me off because it wasn't just inaccurate. It was painting me in a bad light at work. I've babysat for coworkers before, I'm close with my niece and nephew, and anyone who actually knows me knows I love kids. My issue was with her judgment, not with Emily. A blow-up in the break room. One day, I went into the break room and found Samantha and two coworkers already there. I said a quick hello and Samantha snorted and muttered, "Guess we'll have to watch what we say." Wouldn't want to make her uncomfortable, I snapped. Months of keeping my mouth shut boiled over and I told her, "Samantha, enough. You made me and my husband sleep next to your 12-year-old daughter. That wasn't fair to us, and it wasn't fair to her. You're mad because I didn't just go along with it, but don't twist this into me hating kids. That's not okay." The room went dead silent. Samantha looked shocked. I think she expected me to keep avoiding confrontation. One of our coworkers actually said, "Yeah, Sam, that was kind of a weird setup." She stormed out after that. Distance became permanent. After that day, Samantha and I basically stopped speaking unless it was strictly work-related. Honestly, it was a relief. I didn't have to pretend anymore. She's still with Brian as far as I know, and I occasionally see her post pictures of Emily on social media. But we don't interact. Ethan has made it clear he never wants to be in the same social circle as her again, and I feel the same. The weirdest part, a couple months ago, Brian actually pulled me aside when I bumped into him at a work happy hour. He sometimes tags along since he knows a few people in our office. He apologized. He said, "Rachel, for what it's worth, I always thought that sleeping situation was inappropriate too. I just didn't want to fight with Sam about it in the moment." I appreciated him saying that, but it also confirmed everything Ethan and I felt. Samantha steamrolls everyone. Brian didn't even feel like he could advocate for his own daughter, or his guests because it was easier to just go along with what she wanted. That honestly made me sad for Emily, what I learned. Looking back, I realized that Samantha and I were never as close of friends as I thought we were. Our friendship worked as long as I went along with her plans and didn't push back. The second I set a boundary, she turned on me. I also learned how important it is to speak up sooner. Ethan and I should have said something that very first night instead of silently stewing. But at least now I know. Never again will I let myself be pressured into something that makes me that uncomfortable. Where things stand now, Ethan and I are doing great. We laugh about that lake house disaster now, but we also see it as a turning point. We're much clearer about what we will and won't tolerate, especially when it comes to other people's kids. Samantha and I are basically strangers who happen to work in the same building. She's moved to another department, so I only see her in passing. And honestly, that's the best possible outcome. As for Emily, I just hope she grows up and learns that not everyone will bend over backward the way her mom expects. She's a sweet kid and didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of her mom's poor judgment. TLDR final. Months later, Samantha and I are no longer friends. She tried to make me look bad at work. We had a public confrontation in the break room, and since then we've gone no contact outside of professional necessity. Brian later admitted he agreed the sleeping arrangement was inappropriate, but didn't want to fight with Samantha. Ethan and I are glad we drew the line, and will never be put in that situation again. Friendship over. Lesson learned. Stories number 11. My girlfriend wants to quit working and be a stay-at-home wife, and I don't know if I can propose any more. Hey Reddit, buckle up, because this is one of those stories where I honestly feel like I'm living in some alternate universe compared to what I thought my relationship was. I'm Michael 36M, and I've been with my girlfriend Jessica 37F for about 3.5 years. When we first started dating, one of the biggest things that clicked between us was our shared values. Neither of us wanted kids, both of us had stable careers, and we joked about being that dink couple, double income, no kids that spends their vacations traveling, eating out, and spoiling our cats instead of saving for college funds. That lifestyle made sense for us. We're not rich by any means, but between both our incomes, we live very comfortably. We've got a nice apartment. We can take trips once or twice a year, and we can splurge on little luxuries here and there without worrying too much. So you can imagine my shock when Jessica started hinting that she doesn't really see herself working long term. The first hint, it started small. A couple months ago, we were watching a show where one of the characters was a stay-at-home wife. Jessica laughed and said, "Man, that looks like the dream." At first, I thought she was joking. I even made a dumb joke back like, "Yeah, I'd love to stay at home too. You want to be the breadwinner?" We both laughed. End of story. Except it wasn't. The conversation that changed everything. A week later, I came home from work, exhausted, and Jessica had made this whole dinner, which, okay, was sweet. But while we were eating, she casually dropped, "You know, sometimes I think I'd be really happy not working, just focusing on the house, the cats, and maybe picking up crafts." I kind of laughed it off again, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. We'd always been on the same page about being a team. Equal partners, both working, both contributing. So I asked her, "Okay, but what would that look like, realistically? Because right now, I do a lot of chores too. I handle the laundry, I cook half the meals, I take care of the litter box sometimes. Are you saying you'd take on everything at home if you weren't working?" She said, "Well, yeah, mostly. I mean, you'd still help, but I'd definitely do more. I'd finally have time to really keep the place nice. And I could take up painting again." I just sat there thinking, that's not a job. That's not equal. Venting to Daniel, my best friend, I ended up calling my best friend Daniel the next day because I needed to sanity check myself. I told him everything, and he just whistled. "Dude, that's a huge shift. You guys built your relationship on being equals. If she suddenly wants to be financially dependent, that's a red flag." Exactly. That's how I felt. It wasn't even about money so much as the principle of it. If Jessica truly doesn't want to work anymore, then what does that mean for me? That I'm supposed to take care of both of us forever? Talking to my sister Amanda later that week, I brought it up to my sister Amanda. She's the blunt one in the family, and I knew she wouldn't sugarcoat anything. Her reaction: pure disbelief. "Wait, so she just wants to be a stay-at-home wife without kids?" Like, permanently? Yeah, I said. Amanda goes, no offense, Mike, but that sounds like she just wants a sponsor, not a partner. Ouch. But also, kind of true. A more serious talk with Jessica. Few nights later, I decided to stop dancing around it. I asked Jessica directly, do you actually see yourself quitting your job permanently one day? She hesitated, then said, I mean, yeah, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. I think I'd be happier focusing on home life. You'd still have your career. I'd take care of things here. I said, Jess, I need to be honest. If you quit working and don't ever plan to work again, that changes things for me. I wouldn't want to get legally and financially tied to that through marriage. Her face fell. She said, so you're saying you wouldn't propose to me? I told her, not if you don't want to work ever again. No. Fallout. She didn't yell. She didn't cry, but she got really quiet. The next few days were tense. She made comments like, it must be nice knowing your partner would just leave if you didn't make enough money for them. But that's not it at all. I don't care if she makes less than me. I don't care if she changes careers, goes back to school, takes time off for mental health, whatever. What I care about is the principle of both of us contributing in some way, financially or otherwise, instead of one person working forever and the other person living like it's a retirement hobby. Venting at work, I mentioned this lightly to my coworker Lisa. She said, I'd never be okay with that. Even if I could afford to stay home, I'd still want to contribute something. It keeps the balance in the relationship, and that hit the nail on the head. Balance. That's what I feel slipping. Where we stand now, right now, Jessica and I are tense. We haven't broken up, but the marriage talk has definitely stopped. And the worst part is, I don't even know if she understands my side. She keeps framing it like I'm just obsessed with money, when it's really about partnership and shared responsibility. If I'm honest, I don't know if we'll make it long term. And that sucks because I love her. But love isn't enough if we're fundamentally not on the same page about what our future looks like. TL. DR? I 36M always thought my girlfriend 37F and I were on the same page about being a dink couple. Recently she's been hinting she wants to quit working permanently and just be a stay-at-home wife. I told her if that's truly what she wants, I wouldn't propose, because I don't want to be financially tied to someone who refuses to work. Now things are tense, and I'm not sure if we have a future. Update. My girlfriend wants to quit working and be a stay-at-home wife, and I don't know if I can propose anymore. Hey everyone, it's Michael 36M again. I posted a few weeks ago about my girlfriend Jessica 37F, hinting that she wanted to quit her job someday and be a stay-at-home wife, even though we'd always agreed to be child-free and live the dink lifestyle. I told her honestly that if she really never wanted to work again, I wouldn't propose because I don't want to be financially tied to someone with those aspirations. Well, a lot has happened since then, and I figured I'd give you guys the update. The immediate aftermath. After my original post, things between Jessica and me were awkward. We weren't fighting constantly, but there was this heaviness in the air. She felt judged. I felt blindsided. Every conversation about the future was a minefield. One night we had dinner with my sister Amanda and her husband. Amanda didn't bring it up directly, but Jessica could feel the tension. Later that night she said, "Your sister thinks I'm lazy, doesn't she?" I told her, "Jess, this isn't about what Amanda thinks. It's about what you and I agreed on from day one." She shot back with, "So I'm not allowed to change my mind? What if working full-time just isn't fulfilling anymore?" That hit me, because yeah, people can change. But to me, change has to be something we navigate together, not something that turns me into the sole provider without my consent. The trial run idea. Here's where it gets interesting. Jessica suggested we do a trial run of what it would look like if she weren't working. Her idea, she'd quit her job temporarily and run the household full-time while I kept working. I said no, absolutely not. I told her, "Jess, you're asking me to sign up for something permanent when you don't even know what it feels like. That's not a trial. That's me taking all the risk." She didn't like that answer. She accused me of being unwilling to compromise. I told her it's not compromise if one person sacrifices everything and the other gets what they want. Talking to Daniel. Again, I vented to my best friend Daniel about this, and he laid it out plain. Mike, this isn't about dishes or crafts. This is about the life you're building. If she's looking at the next 30 years as you working and her not, then she's imagining a future you don't want. That's not something you can fix with chores. That's a fundamental mismatch. That hit me like a truck. Because deep down, I knew he was right. The breaking point, 2 weeks ago, Jessica and I had the biggest fight we've had in our entire relationship. I came home from work late project deadlines, and she was frustrated that I hadn't helped with dinner. I reminded her that I do help, a lot, and that right now, we're both working full-time. It's supposed to be balanced. She said, if you just let me stay home, this wouldn't be an issue. You'd never have to worry about dinner, or laundry again. And I snapped. I said, Jess, you're asking me to give up my vision of a partnership so you can live like you're retired at 37. That's not fair. That's not equal. That's not the deal we made when we started this, relationship. Her response? Then maybe you're not the person I should be with. That silence afterward was deafening. The fallout. For the next few days, we barely spoke. She stayed at her sister's place for a weekend to get some space. When she came back, it was clear we were both thinking the same thing. This might be the end. I told her, Jess, I love you. But if this is the future you really want, then I can't give it to you, and I won't string you along. She cried. I cried. We held each other for a long time, and then she packed a bag and left to stay with her sister again. Where things stand now. We haven't officially broken up, but we're on what I guess you'd call a pause. She texted me a few days ago saying she's been thinking about what she really wants in life, and that she doesn't want to force me into something I don't want. At the same time, she still feels strongly that she doesn't see herself working a traditional job forever. So here we are, in love, but wanting different futures. And I don't know if love is enough to bridge that gap. Final thoughts for now. This whole situation has made me realize how important it is to not just talk about the big stuff, kids, marriage, but also the things you assume you're aligned on, like careers, lifestyle, and long-term plans, because people change. And sometimes that change makes you realize you're not walking the same path anymore. I don't know if Jessica and I will make it. But I do know this. I'd rather face the hard truth now than marry someone under false assumptions and resent her for it later. Thanks for all the comments on my original post, even the tough ones. They gave me the clarity I needed to stand firm on what I value in a partnership. Final update. My girlfriend wanted to quit working and be a stay-at-home wife. Here's where we ended up months later. Hey everyone, it's Michael, 36M. I didn't think I'd be back with another update, but a lot has happened since my last post. I wanted to give you the final chapter of this story because, honestly, reading your perspectives helped me more than I can explain. It's been about 6 months since that last update, and I feel like I've lived through an entire emotional roller coaster. The breakup that finally happened. After Jessica left to stay with her sister, we tried to talk things through a few more times, but every conversation circled back to the same problem. Her dream of stepping away from work, and my need for a partner who'd share the financial load. At first, we avoided labeling it a breakup. We called it a pause, a break, even a reset. But after about 3 weeks of limbo, Jessica sat across from me in my living room one evening and said, Mike, I don't want to keep pretending we're building the same life when we're not. I love you. But love isn't enough for this. That crushed me. Even though I knew it was coming, hearing it out loud made it real. I tried to keep my composure, but I'll admit I broke down after she left that night. The next day, she texted me saying she was moving in with her sister for good. That was the end. The aftermath, loneliness and doubt. The first month post-breakup was brutal. Coming home to an empty apartment felt like a punch in the gut. Her shoes weren't by the door, her tea mugs weren't stacked in the cabinet, and the cats would still look around for her voice. I'd scroll back through our photos together, hiking trips, random sushi dates, goofy selfies, and feel this mix of sadness and anger. Sadness because I lost my partner. Anger because I felt blindsided by this sudden shift in her vision for the future. And honestly, I started questioning myself. Was I too rigid? Too selfish? Should I have just agreed to let her try out the Sayu thing for a year? Would that have been the compromise that saved us? Conversations that changed. My perspective of few people in my life helped me see things clearer. My sister Amanda sat me down one night and said, "Mike, you didn't do anything wrong. You were honest about your boundaries. She was honest about hers. That's not failure. That's clarity." The real mistake would have been ignoring those boundaries and resenting each other for the next 20 years. That stuck with me. My best friend Daniel reminded me of something I wrote in my original post. I never wanted to be financially tied to someone who didn't want to contribute. He asked me, "Why are you questioning yourself for standing by your own words?" Again, clarity. Strangely enough, I had a conversation with my boss, who went through a divorce in his 40s. He told me, "You can recover from heartbreak. You can't recover from 15 years of financial resentment." That hit me like a ton of bricks. Jessica's new life. We stayed no contact for a while, but eventually I heard bits and pieces about Jessica through mutual friends. She quit her job about 2 months after our breakup. She's been living with her sister while figuring things out. Apparently she's gotten really into pottery and gardening. From what I gather, she's been happy in that sense. Like she finally has time to explore hobbies without work draining her. But the financial side? From what Amanda's friend who knows Jessica's sister told me, things are tight. Her sister's been helping cover her expenses, and there's been tension about it. I don't feel glee about that. I genuinely hope Jessica finds stability and happiness. But it does make me realize that her dream of not working was never really compatible with the reality of our shared life goals. My own growth. As for me, I've been slowly rebuilding. Therapy. I started seeing a therapist to process the breakup, and honestly, it's been life-changing. I learned that I tend to shoulder responsibility for other people's happiness, and that's why I kept questioning myself. My therapist helped me see that it's okay to want an equal partnership. That doesn't make me cold or selfish. It makes me honest. Career. I threw myself into work for a while and I actually ended up getting promoted. The raise and recognition gave me a confidence boost that I really needed after feeling rejected in my personal life. Social life. I reconnected with old friends I drifted from while in the relationship. I even started going on weekend trips. With Daniel again. Something I hadn't done in years because Jessica wasn't really into traveling, unless it was fancy. Dating. Yep, I've dipped my toes back in. Nothing serious yet, but I've met a few women through mutual friends. It's been refreshing to talk to people who are upfront about their career ambitions and life goals. The closure moment. Here's the wild part. Jessica reached out about a month ago. She asked if we could grab coffee, not to rekindle anything, but to talk. I agreed because I felt enough time had passed. We met at a little cafe downtown. She looked good, calmer, more grounded. She told me she's officially decided she doesn't want to go back to traditional work. She said she's been applying for part-time gigs at craft shops and community centers instead, just enough to cover basics while focusing on her art. Then, she said something that gave me closure. "Mike, you did the right thing. You were true to yourself. If you had agreed to what I wanted, you would have grown to hate me. I see that now." I almost cried right there. Not because I wanted her back, but because I finally felt seen. We parted ways with a hug, and I walked, away lighter than I've felt in months. Final thoughts. Looking back now, I realize this relationship wasn't a failure. It was a lesson. I learned that being aligned on lifestyle goals is just as important as being aligned on kids or marriage. I learned that compromise has limits, and sacrificing your entire vision for life isn't compromise, it's self-betrayal. And I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do for both people is let go. Jessica and I loved each other deeply, but love alone doesn't pay the bills, doesn't build retirement, and doesn't fix resentment. We wanted different lives, and that's okay. I don't know what the future holds for me. Maybe marriage someday, maybe not. But I do know this. The next time I commit, it'll be to someone whose vision of partnership matches mine. And that's worth waiting for. Stories number 12 AITA for revoking my daughter's college fund. When my wife and I divorced, my daughter 14F took my wife's side, which I was pretty upset and surprised about. She was 12 when we separated, and we were very close, unlike her and her mother. I didn't hold in against her because she's a kid and didn't know any better, and I make the effort to see her. I love spending time with my daughter. I met my current wife 4 years ago. She was pre-law and was planning on taking loans to pay for law school. However, about 2 years later, we were engaged, and I didn't want her to take on any loans, so I offered to pay for law school. She was apprehensive, but I wanted a good start to our married life and not want any loans hanging over our heads, so she agreed. I used my daughter's college fund to pay for my wife's school and planned on replenishing it so that my daughter would have a fund when it was her turn to go to college. I put a little money each month. I honestly thought this was okay because when I had asked her about college at the time of doing this, she said that she wanted to go to makeup school and be a makeup artist and that college sucks. Well, apparently her mindset changed because on Sunday, we met up and she was talking about AP classes. I was surprised because I didn't think she was interested in school. I asked her if she was joking, but she said that she's aiming for CS at some top private college and that her dream is to start a startup business. She then asked me if she had a college fund and she wanted to know if she should add on an EC or get a job. I told her the truth about her college fund and that right now there's not enough money for even a year at a private college. She then started crying and making a scene and told me that she couldn't believe that I chose my wife over her mom, and now I'm choosing her again over my daughter. Which is not true, since my daughter is getting a fund, just not private school tuition. She then called my wife a bunch of awful names that I won't say here. I told her that she's probably not going to get into a private school because she wasn't even serious about school 2 years ago. She called me a shit dad and ran away until her mom came to get her. Her mom later called me angrily about what I said to her, and said that my daughter is on track to win some prestigious science fair award, and I was way out of line with what I said and that I obviously don't know her. I was honestly so done with the BS she pulled, and her attitude toward my wife never has been good, and said that I'm probably going to revoke my daughter's college fund since she obviously doesn't deserve it with what she pulled today. My daughter is now refusing to see me and calling me by my first name. I still stand by my decision. Eta, edit. I'm done with the rude comments about my wife. It's am3, the asshole, not is my wife, the asshole. Not that you guys deserve any additional information, but my wife really is great. I'll accept an asshole judgment for me cheating even though it's really not what I'm asking in this post, but everyone seems to be hell-bent on it. I was a super asshole for cheating, happy? My wife wasn't. When we met, I was 32 and she was 20. We had a casual relationship, and I didn't mean to start it, but she was so amazing and had such a vibrant personality, and I was really depressed at that time, but she helped uplift me. I didn't tell her I was married, only that I had a daughter. And I know that's bad, but I didn't feel married to my ex-wife at that time. I was so unhappy, and she was too. My wife and I had an amazing relationship, and as she was going to be graduating college soon, she wanted to get serious. I told her the truth and my wife was upset, but she decided to forgive me. I proposed and introduced her to my daughter, and she hoped we would be a family. She was nothing but kind to my daughter. But my daughter was hostile from the minute she met her, never gave a chance. My daughter and my mom would play cruel pranks on her, like organizing a date and never showing up, ruining her wedding dress, spreading rumors about her to all my relatives, making fun of her to her face. My wife took the high route and forgave all of that, only speaking highly of my daughter. Even to her friends, she'll brag about how pretty and amazing my daughter is, and how she's sure my daughter will accept her when she's a bit older. So yes, my wife is a saint and an amazing person. Stop shitting on her, Reddit. You got your backstory. Edit. I will keep my daughter's fund and try to add enough money for private school. If she doesn't apologize and consider my wife her family, though she won't be getting it, I'd rather her be hostile to me and hate me rather than my wife since I fucked up, but my wife is feeling guilty over something that's not her mistake. Edit. So a lot of shit went down after I posted this, or because I posted this actually. My wife called my daughter's mother because she felt bad about the situation and is sad about my relationship with my daughter. She insisted on the remaining money in the account, about $45K, to my daughter in a separate fund controlled by her mother. Her mother didn't take that well, and hung up on my wife after telling her that she didn't need her charity. My wife now won't talk to me because she feels that I put her in a bad position and should have told her before that the money was my daughter's, because she figured that it was just extra money I had left over and not my daughter's fund. She's saying that I caused unnecessary drama and could have handled the situation way better, and that she's trying her best to fix what I broke, but she's exhausted. She's currently packing to go stay with her parents for the time being, so that's that. My ex-wife is furious at me because my wife called her and she didn't want to hear my wife's bitch voice. She blew up at me for taking everything so far and is blaming me for ruining everyone's happiness. She says that I can't fix anything anymore and not to even worry about my daughter's fund because she didn't raise her daughter to get on all four knees and beg, and that she has everything figured out for her daughter now. She thanked me for putting everything in perspective and that I'm not longer permitted to visit or contact my daughter. She has full custody. I'm now sitting here typing all this out and figuring out ways to contest custody. So that's what's happening in my life right now. I just don't get how everything got all messed up when my heart is in the right place. I don't feel wrong.